this is an event with Backstage is going to be talking for how filmmakers can use their platform to connect to performers nationwide. And it's also going to be telling actors how they can use the platform to connect to filmmakers worldwide. And if you're a writer, you may find the information very useful because it'll allow you to do things like set up, find actors you can work with to do staged readings, or actors that you can work with to do things like audiobooks. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Do you guys want to, John, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself, and then
Sure.
Eli, perhaps you could talk about your background?
Okay. My name's John Berkowitz. At Backstage, I'm a casting specialist, which basically entails me reaching out to people like Nancy, other organizations and institutions, different agencies to try and spread the word about Backstage as a supplemental casting tool and resource for finding talent. Before this, I was in LA for about 5 years, working in all parts of the industry, like from development to management, as a writer, on like a range of different budget projects, from like web series to commercials and films. I worked on the Showtime show The Big C, where I was writing jokes and punch up and dialogue and doing research for them. And before after that, I just decided to move back to New York, where I'm from, and now I'm at Backstage.
Very cool. And how about you, Eli?
Yep, my name is Eli Cornell, and I am also a casting specialist here at Backstage. What my job primarily is what I do is like edit notices a lot. So like I just make sure when we get the notices from the filmmakers or anyone that's submitting notices to us, just making sure that all of the information is in the proper place where our subscribers know to look for the information. We never change any information that's given. We just make sure that it's all in the proper place, and edit it to our editorial style and everything like that. I also am in communication with casting directors, filmmakers, student filmmakers, anybody that's having issues with posting, with what we're going to share with you guys today. They can come straight to me, and I'm happy to help them get any issues figured out. If somebody's not getting kind of a response that they're looking for, we can tweak their notice, get it sent out to more areas, everything like that. My background, I actually worked in casting for about 3 years. I worked for a couple casting companies here in New York City. Worked on Broadway shows, regional theater. Did background casting for a while as well on many big hit shows and movies like Ninja Turtles, John Wick, Royal Pains, Gotham. Those are just to name a few. And yeah, so now that was, if any of you have worked in casting before, it's just it's a huge job, and I left just to have more free time, and actually ended up here where I still am able to work in the business and still able to work with casting personnel. So it's been, for me, I get the best of both worlds here.
Exactly. John mentioned that a lot of actors, even a lot of very well-known actors, actually keep a profile on the Backstage website. And it's also actually, and they may have their agents monitoring the transactions that happen there, but it is possible to sort of reach pretty extraordinary talent just through the Backstage platform, which is not something that you hear very many people talking about. And I think a lot of filmmakers don't realize that it's a method, that Backstage is a method that allows them to reach talent in any state in the union, and reach talent at sort of at every income level. Can you talk a little bit about what needs your platform is designed to meet, and how you think it's best utilized by independent filmmakers?
Well, I think Backstage has traditionally been known as like a sort of a theater magazine, and like just as like a publication in general. But like we've sort of really changed gears in the last few years, just optimizing and becoming digital and just focusing on the casting side of things on like a broader scale. Whereas like we get projects from like all walks of life. Like it's not just theater, it's not just TV, it's not movies, it's web series, it's musicals. There's like staged readings. Like even if like the LA Clippers are like looking for cheerleaders, we get that. So it's just like any sort of like performance, looking for performers. That's kind of like who we attract, and we like every day we're getting just new projects we haven't even like considered, but like we are just because of like the vastness of our database full of actors and talent, like we can always accommodate these sort of projects with those types of performers.
Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between Backstage and casting directors? Do casting directors post notices there routinely, or is it the case that that they use the platform to go directly to the talent that they want to reach out to, or is it the case that because I've noticed that you do have actually casting directors that are listed on the platform, and I don't know if those people are interested in getting business from independent filmmakers and others through the platform, or if they have accounts because they're reaching out to people on behalf of clients that connect with them otherwise.
Casting directors do post, they post directly with us. Many do. And we have very good relationships with many casting directors. I mean, here in New York, in LA, and in other places in the nation as well. But yeah, they post directly with us. I was just confused by the question. Were you looking for like independent filmmakers, like looking to hire casting?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you wanted to reach out to a casting director and say, I have this project and I was wondering if you might be interested in working on with me to cast it, because I think a lot of times independent filmmakers who are building projects don't know enough to be able to cast people correctly. They don't understand what credits matter, and they also don't know they don't know the rules that the unions require them to meet and so forth when it comes to their posts.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have, why is the name is escaping me right now, but there is the call sheet. It's call sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So Backstage call sheet, which would list, you can go and search for agencies, or you can go and search for casting directors, which they'll have their contact information so that you would absolutely, a filmmaker would absolutely be able to reach out to them directly to inquire about their services for sure.
Oh, very cool. So you can actually filmmakers can not just get cast, but they can also get casting directors to work with them to build up projects. That's very hip. Mm-hmm. So I think before we go on, it might make sense if you guys sort of you have a presentation you were going to walk through, and I think you were going to might even give people a glimpse of the platform if that's possible. And if you wanted to go ahead and do that, I think it might make people understand better, understand what we're talking about more.
Like when we're especially talking with like people in LA, telling them about Backstage, sometimes they're like, well, I use like Actors Access or
Casted or casting networks. I mean, there's a lot.
And they're like, well, why should I use Backstage? And like really like in addition to those, like just seeing the way people are now casting and finding their talent like in all different areas of the country. They're doing it a lot with like through social media, like Facebook and Twitter and Craigslist. And the thing is, like, we provide like the access to like just professional actors and just like a high quality talent that you're not going to find there. Also, just like we just have people like myself and Eli who can always talk with the client or filmmaker, whoever has a project and has questions to whether it's troubleshoot or they're having trouble finding a certain type of actor to play a certain type of role. We're always here to like answer questions. we get a wide range of projects here, and sometimes they're little shorts for like Funny or Die or just for a film school. But a lot of times we do get high profile, big budget projects like The Wolf of Wall Street, Gotham, The Dark Knight Rises, shows on Netflix, always cast with us, and they've been very successful, which is why they keep coming back. So to get started, pretty much you'll go to like backstage.com, and you'll, like in the top right hand corner where the green arrows are, you'll just click on post a job to get started, and then you're going to be redirected to another page where you'll click post a job once more. Then you create an account. Just you're going to tell us a little bit about yourself, just like what your name, email, contact information. Build yourself like a password. Tell us who you are in the industry, if you have like a company name, so on and so forth. And then that'll take you to like the actual project and what you're looking to post with us. And basically, it's pretty self-explanatory just in terms of like filling out the relevant fields, like what the project description is, when you're going to shoot, rehearse, what people are associated with the project, what it's going to pay, what the roles are, if it's union or non-union. Typically, some people basically, as you can see, like unions usually refer to SAG-AFTRA for film and TV, Actors Equity for theater, and commercials and multimedia projects like web series or do like SAG new media contracts and low budget contracts. Finally, like at the end of the casting notice, like you'll be like filling in the roles that like you want to be that you're looking for. You'll, if you're like shooting in LA, you'll basically just say you're looking for people in LA. An option to look for talent nationwide. You can add script sides, like a logo, a poster, bios about the people involved, videos of like the past work you've done, or if it's like a trailer for what you're making now, like as a full-length film, you can include that. So by attending like this webinar and just being a part of Nancy's network, we at Backstage have agreed to allow you all to post for free with us. All these instructions are in the casting guide that will be distributed to you. And then like once you post your casting notice, then you're gonna start receiving submissions, and you're gonna want to like see what who these actors are, review like their background, their resume, what they look like, and if they're gonna be right for your project. So basically, you can go back to backstage.com, click on My Account, and in the top right corner, like right above Post a Job, you'll scroll down to Casting Dashboard. Click on Manage Applicants.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you have the options of selecting talent, of contacting talent that you're interested in. You can see at the top of the screen, there's the different tabs that you can put them in. So if there's people that you don't like, you can put them in the no's so that you don't have, like, they're not going to come up in your search results. There's people that you want to audition, you can put them in the audition. If you've already, and then so on and so forth. So if you've already auditioned them and you cast somebody, then you can move them to the cast, so that this will always, because this isn't going to change in your account. So you can go back a year after you've done the project, and you can go back and see who you cast in the project. And if you look over the suggestions tab, the second from the right hand side, that's going to give you suggestions based on the criteria of the role that you built. So that the age, ethnicity, the description, like if there's descriptive words, that an actor would have used in their profile, and the location. And that's just going to be suggestions that are made from an algorithm that has been created by Backstage here, for you, like, to possibly contact if you thought they were interesting, that maybe they didn't submit to the project, they didn't see the project, or for some reason they just didn't submit, that you can get this suggestion and that you can contact them. Which by contacting them, is you see it's pretty standard, is you can see the little message below each picture, a little envelope, which would allow you to direct message. And when you message somebody on Backstage, they'll get an email alert. So like it's all, so they'll get an email alert, and then if they answer you back, you can get an email alert, and you can do it all through email. You don't ever have to actually go into the account once you're communicating with people. You do have to go into your account, as we're doing now, to look for the submissions. But you can also receive the submissions. If I'm rambling a little bit, receive the submissions directly to your email as well. There's different ways to select once you build the notice, to select how you will be receiving the submissions. So if you you can receive an email for every single person that submits, or you can receive an email once a day, or an email once a week, or not receive emails and then just check your account when you feel like it. But for those emails that you receive from the submissions, you can also go directly into these profiles from your email, as long as you're already logged into your Backstage account.
That's really cool. Actually, it's amazing. There we go. So I had a couple of questions. First, I want to mention that I did actually, I'm a big believer actually that if you're working on a project, you really have to, a screenplay or any kind of a play, even in the development stage, you have to work with actors to test it, because otherwise you don't know, you can't really hear until you hear a professional actor work with the character, or until you hear the whole play or the whole screenplay out loud. You really can't, you don't know what the pacing is like. How it reads on the page is just not at all how it's going to play. So I actually did use your platform to created a profile, and I put a listing up, and I actually hired an actor through the platform, and it was really elegant.
Filmmakers, and you can search on your own. Like there's the entire database. Once you have an account, you have access to the entire database. So as long as you know, like, you can put in the criteria of the character, of the role, and then search for people. We always recommend posting a notice. And for I mean, anybody in this chat, you don't have to worry about that because you can do it for free now. So you don't have to worry about that financially. But we always recommend posting a notice, simply because when reaching out specifically for independent filmmakers who might not be known, when you're reaching out to these people, is just so that they know that you actually have a project, just so it's there. And it's a lot easier actually when messaging people, because you can just message them, and you can just message them the link to your project's casting notice, so that you can say, hey, would you be interested in applying for this? I think you'd be great for this role. And then they can look at it themselves. I
think that's particularly important if you're looking for somebody with a unique background. If you're doing something where you need somebody who can ride a horse, or you need somebody who's has a background in fencing or in martial arts or something. It's the being able to go directly to that pool of content, being able to see a database of people who have a specific skill but may have a wide variety of looks is really important, because I do think it's the case that a lot of times people tend to cast. The casting process lends itself to booking people by appearance, but I don't necessarily think that that's the most appropriate way to hire a lot of performers. I mean, I don't think anybody in their life ever said, before we knew there was a Danny DeVito, nobody ever said, I want a smart talking person who is 4 feet 6 inches tall. Right? Nobody ever said that. And yet, you know, if you couldn't, I think it couldn't have been the case that if you had a role that Danny DeVito was perfect for, that
Mm-hmm.
you saw his video.
I mean, as somebody with a background in casting, I always highly recommend holding in-person auditions.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gonna work out better for your project that way. Like as you said, just
Because you can't, there's just no opportunity for magic to happen if you don't meet people face to face. But I think it tends to open up the casting option significantly if you can go and look at all the different people who have a specific set of skills, or like you're trying to hire somebody who speaks Portuguese. You know, what they look like may not be the most important thing. You may need you may really want somebody who speaks Portuguese as if they were from Lisbon, you know, or somebody who speaks Russian, you know, who there's just a huge number of factors that come into casting, and not all of them are based on appearance, and not being able to have access to the whole database to cast from is a hugely amazing thing. So I don't think there's any other resource currently online that lets people reach out to that much talent more directly than you guys do. And I think and I do see a qualitative difference. I've actually used obviously the other casting services as well, and it's not that I hate them. It's just that it's not the same. It's not the same kind of home that Backstage is trying to be. Backstage is trying very hard. The platform is trying to be a home, an ongoing home for actors to be able to find work and to create a community. It's trying to be where you actually find where talent lives, kind of. And that's just not what the other platforms are trying to do at all. They're really trying to be service providers for producers, and that's just a completely different focus.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So
it is. It's a completely different aspect of casting and a different part of the business, really. I mean, it's still obviously in casting, but it's just a different way to go about it.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of, it's kind of like, you know, there's Twitter and there's Facebook, but there's Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. There's a huge number of different platforms, you know, where you can have what amounts to a social media dialogue, but the one that you use comes with characteristics that make the kind of interactions that happen there significantly different. The other thing is, my sense, and I could totally be wrong, but my sense is that a lot of theater actors do actually create their profiles. Theatrical performers do actually create their profiles on Backstage and actually do visit the site regularly looking for gigs. And I do think that if you're the kind of filmmaker, if you're casting theater performers, you would very likely go to Backstage first. But even if you're a filmmaker who wants to work with theatrical talent, people who have been theatrically trained through the theater, or have performed on theater because you like working with that kind of performer, I think Backstage would probably be a first place to go, just because that's where they're going to be. They're going to have their profiles, and that's where they're going to be searching for things. So, we had a couple of topics that we were going to address that were specifically related to actors. Let's say somebody comes and they see a listing on Backstage, and then they correspond with the filmmaker. Do you have any suggestions that you make when it comes to them going out on auditions?
As far as like safety things, the first thing is, and we tell this to anybody posting also notices on our site, is we expect auditions to be in a public place, and preferably in a studio.
Not someone's apartment.
Not someone's apartment. And there are certain times when people do have an audition, a casting call in an apartment, where they're inviting people to their apartments, and we make sure that if that's the case, we make sure that that's known to us, and we make sure that that's known to anybody submitting to the project. We never, as a rule, as a company, we never recommend people going to those auditions.
You might scare actors off.
It might, and we tell people that too. So that's as far as being safe, as far as safety. As far as just general, very general but important not rules, just guidelines. As far as auditioning is, as far as from the actor's from the actor's perspective, is remember that this is, when you go into an audition room, there's a couple things. There's the first thing is the audition starts immediately. Like as soon as you enter the room, the audition starts. Like the people in the creative team are taking note of who you are as a person as soon as they see you. So you have to note that, and then also you have to know that if you're given 2 minutes to 5 minutes or whatever, that's your 2 minutes to 5 minutes. That's you just own it. You just you know, you got to be prepared. And if it's a cold reading, if you're not getting the sides until you're there, that's one thing. But still, you still remember that that's your time. That's your time to show the creative team who you are as a person and as a performer. And as far as afterwards, I always recommend, I mean, depending on how big the audition is. If it's a huge audition, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea. But if it's like a smaller, more intimate audition, absolutely recommend a follow-up message. I mean, I think that in any situation, but absolutely in this kind of situation, just saying, you know, thanking the casting director for their time, and thank you for inviting you in, and it was a pleasure to audition for you.
And the platform actually makes that really easy, because you're still connected with them on the platform, so you can always just go back into the correspondence that you were already having and send the thank you message directly to them.
Absolutely. And you're keeping yourself in their head too. You don't, I mean, you don't know where you're landing as far as a casting decision, but if they're on the fence and then they hear from you and then you're there, I mean, it's all positives.
Right. I think as a filmmaker, speaking to actors, I'd also specifically like to make sure that because I think there's been a tremendous push reasonably to make people stop working for free or for working for under minimum wage and so forth. I mean, SAG has kind of made that an issue, the issues that have been happening with interns and so forth. So I think that when you take a gig, when you take a role with a filmmaker, or whenever you're cast in anything, you have a right to know what the economic specifics of that deal are, and you have a right to set limits on how much you're going to work for how much money, because it really is actually illegal for people to work under the minimum wage. And I think people do it in theater, they do it when they're building credits and so forth, but but you shouldn't be afraid that if somebody's asked you to work on what amounts to a completely free project for, like, you know, a month or two, and to no benefit to yourself, that you can't just back away and go, you know what, this is not happening. I don't want to do this anymore. You should be afraid that's going to damage your career.
That's a good point. It's, and you're absolutely right. That is absolutely within their rights, which is why, again, we ask anybody posting to be very upfront about the pay or about the hours that they're going to be. I mean, you know, as a filmmaker, you don't always know, which is understood from our side. But we just ask them to be as specific as possible. And as far as pay, for sure, as an actor, like, that is everything you should know ahead of time. If that's something you're auditioning for, you need to make sure you have all the information.
If somebody, whether it's a filmmaker or somebody purchasing or working with you to cast, runs into problems with a specific actor, or if an actor runs into a problem with somebody who's cast, can they contact you and let you know, look, this guy is not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we get, like, on a daily basis complaints from actors or filmmakers about respective talent or filmmakers, and then we have people here that will investigate the matter, just contact that particular person and just find out the nature of the problem and just confirm details and complaints. And if it's something shady going on from a filmmaker, then we'll kick him off our site, ban him, and take down the notice so that no other actors can be harmed by them. And then like we'll contact like the actors who applied and just be like, hey, beware of this person.
Very cool. And you guys you and your associates actually look at every single message before it actually goes live? So
every single casting notice.
Right.
Our casting notices, they do go live immediately. We have different protocols. I don't know the tech lingo that does, like if something comes up that's fishy, it won't go. If not everything matches on the notice, it won't go live until we approve it. The ones that do go live, they go live with a little banner at the top. And the banner at the top says, please note, I'm paraphrasing, but it says, please note that our casting editors have yet to approve this notice. So, basically submit at your own risk. But we look at every single notice before it's approved. And so actors that are debating submitting for a job will always know if one is approved and has been seen by our team.
That's very cool. I think it's that kind of policing is just critical for a site that people are going to depend on. The other thing I wanted to ask about is, do you guys think it's cool, or is it okay with you if writers, for example, reach out to your actors in order to request their help in doing table readings, or in terms of doing or for things like audiobooks, or for similar kinds of things? Because you don't really hear a lot about actors and writers working together, but actually more and more they are. So do you want to talk for a minute about how you see writers using your site?
I mean, we get, like I think as we said before, we just get like a wide range of projects. We get a lot of stage readings, whether it's like a playwright or a writer-director who wants to like do a read-through of his script, looking for actors. We do get tons of like voiceover work, whether it's like for a film or if it is for like an audio book or some kind of audio project. And they pretty much just proceed like the same way as if it's like any other project. Let
me just do a quick look-see and see if we have any questions. I have one question, but I don't know that it's specifically sort of a creative community question more than specific to Backstage. James asks, what's the biggest mistake you see young filmmakers making when they are living in Los Angeles or New York? And I don't know if that's something that you're interested in providing an answer to, but I bet you actually do know what it is.
Oh, I don't know that I don't know what it is. I mean,
actually, I have a pretty good answer, and it's the same, which is basically that the biggest mistake I see filmmakers making, there's two mistakes that I just wish people, particularly filmmakers, are the worst ones, but everybody does it. Is the belief that activity means that any activity is equally good, and without thinking about the fact, without realizing that you have to actually sort of plan, being informed, having a plan, coming up with a plan, looking at how other people have been successful, creating a career for yourself is important. And a lot of times I think people one of the reasons people do a lot of stuff for free is because they're thinking, well, I don't really know what I want to do. And especially filmmakers, because they're the ones that are driving the projects. I don't know what I want to do, and so I'm just going to go ahead and get some actors and just see if something happens. And it's like, dude, aside from the fact that's probably illegal if you do it all the time, it's also, especially if you plan to distribute the content, you also aren't really you're kind of wasting your own time. It's like, why don't you just sit back and figure out what you're going to do that's going to be meaningful? And it doesn't have to be, you can do a documentary. Documentaries aren't hard. They're not expensive. You can do short little web series pieces, and you can use them for promotional purposes if they're good work. But I think a lot of times there's just a huge message that goes out in the marketplace these days. Just do it. And it's like, the thing is, you can waste, I've seen people literally waste, years and years and years and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars with this just do it guerrilla filmmaking, and it goes particularly south if you haven't got any of the legal protections, or you haven't done any of the stuff you're supposed to do legally. You know, like you're employing people, but you're not paying them, or you're paying them minimum wage, you know, or under the table, but they don't have workers' comp and somebody gets injured. I mean, people, or you have actors and you're actually using them to build sets and stuff, and it's like, you know, that is a false economy you got going on there. So those are kind of, I mean,
I guess one thing that comes to mind, like that I from like my time in LA, that I could take away, and just hearing from like other people, like I know it's like really easy, like when you hear like oh, the film industry, the entertainment industry, like you have to network, but like I would just say like that's so much like network, but just like be open and like meet people, and like gradually, like down the road, like if you like surround yourself with success, like success will like make its way to you. So if like you're around like people who are like on the rise and like making it, and like you're right there, like you can just I don't know, it can it's very transferable, I think, and like is an industry about like who you know in relationships, and just like staying current, like always like sort of like kind of to your point about like just, oh, I want to do it myself, I don't really have a plan, kind of. I guess like some people will give there will be both people on different sides of the fence for this, but just like kind of see like what people are doing and what is trending, kind of, and just trying to not so much like if you're like a writer looking to write something that's going to sell, but just kind of see like what the general like climate is, and just kind of like what's out there, and just trying to like be relevant and try and like stay in that area, and then trying to like kind of like, I don't know, trying to anticipate like what the next shift is going to be, and going with that.
I do think it's important to stay, and it's not like you don't want to judge people, but it is the case that you look at people, and if you see people whose careers are going the way you want them to go, or you join, everybody joins groups, they join meetups, they go on to LinkedIn events. There's like a billion, there's a million different networking and opportunities. When you find people that you like, who are in motion and who are being successful, it's a good thing to hang out with them, because what's happening, part of it is you see what they're doing, and it creates opportunities in your own mind. Also, they're of like mind, so they might through exposure to you, they may learn what you're good at and where your specific areas of interest are, and they may invite you onto projects.
Sure.
So like hanging out, to some degree, you sort of want to, the company you keep translates into the opportunities that are in your environment. So you can't, actually, one guy told me, and it was the best thing ever, advice I think I ever, he should just like, it should be a t-shirt for writers. Maybe leave the house. Maybe leave the house. He goes, do you think people are going to go up to your door and knock on it and say, I'd like to produce that multi-million-dollar film? They're probably not going to do that. So you do actually have to leave the house and meet people and get involved. And I think through that process, you do get opportunities, and you actually do develop a plan. But I always recommend that people, it's one of the reasons I'm not against people working for free or working collaboratively. But I think it just sometimes turns into people in motion without actually achieving anything, and it's problematic for me. But sure. Let's go ahead and if there's any other questions, go ahead and send an email to nancy.fulton@yahoo.com, and I'm going to go ahead and check right now. And let's see. Oh, this is actually kind of an interesting question. So on some other platforms, they actually do check. They actually will call SAG to make sure that somebody's project is actually SAG qualified, like they've actually, the filmmakers actually signed the contract. But that's not something that you guys do. Is there a specific reason why you don't do that, or is it just that you feel like it doesn't, even if people check with SAG at one point, it doesn't necessarily mean that the filmmaker is going to be actually honoring the SAG contract, so it doesn't really it's not helping you?
I mean, there's not a specific reason. We are absolutely in contact with the unions. And I mean, of course, we're not going to recommend to some. I mean, not recommend is not the right word. We are going to deter people from saying that they're a union project when they're not a union project. But I mean, that's also. I mean, it is the actors union. So it's also, like we discussed before, it's important for them to be on top of that, to make sure not that we're condoning lying on casting notices again.
But they before they take a gig for something that says union, they should absolutely have their representation should absolutely be in the business of confirming that, because
they should definitely confirm. What we do when we're viewing a casting notice for the first time and before approving it, if somebody has said they're seeking union talent or seeking both non-union and union talent, we always go back, but they haven't clarified, we always go back to them and say and ask them, we see that you're seeking both union and non-union. What is your union contract? If they don't have an answer for us, like a lot of times, if it's something that's not obvious at all, then when we write them, we say, can you let us know? For now, we have switched your notice to non-union, because we don't want to approve a notice that's seeking union actors, but we don't have a union contract.
Well, and for a fact, because you've actually spoken to the filmmaker, and you've actually said, is this a union contract? Because you're casting union and non-union, and there's not every contract lets you do that. And if they can't answer that question, then they don't know what so for a fact that they're
it's just a standard thing. I mean, there's many standard as far as like SAG-AFTRA, there's SAG-AFTRA New Media, like SAG-AFTRA. There's certain schools that we work with that for student films that we know that the school and the union and SAG-AFTRA are aligned. So we know that they're going to get the SAG-AFTRA student film agreement. So there's different ones like that. But again, even if we list the union contract, I still would absolutely recommend to the actor to search that specific contract and make sure you know all the details.
I think that's a very responsible thing to do. And let's see. Another question we have is, would you recommend people using your service to cast actors for a prequel or for a short film that's going to be used to sell a project to investors?
But in scenarios like that, it's also just important just to be upfront about everything. Like if that's the case, like we, because we are, Backstage is working both for the filmmakers and the casting directors as well as the actors. So we want all that information to be upfront. Like if it's like a production, if you're saying, this is what we're casting. This is the project that we're casting. It's in development. We're not sure if it's getting made. We don't have the money to get made. That's something that's fine. But like we would prefer to know that.
And to let people know in advance.
For that information to be in the notice, so that actors they're already in the know before they even submit.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Otherwise, they're going to submit and they're going to ask both you, the filmmaker, and they're going to come to us saying like, "What's going on here?" And it's just a lot of.
Right, especially if you say yes, I want to work with you, and then and then you keep in contact with them, and they keep thinking, well, this is going to start shooting, and you're not even funded yet. So it's like.
Yeah. It's just. I mean, like we've talked about how many times already on this is that the pay is just important. If there's no pay, that's fine. But like but there still needs to be
clarity.
Exactly.
Right.
Clarity.
So someone asks, I have a reel that I edited myself, and I think they mean an actor's reel, and it uses student film footage. and it's pretty obvious that it's not professional work. Should I go ahead and submit this as part of my actor's profile, or should I go ahead and just post my headshot and not hold back on the video until I can post better content? What do you recommend?
Unless you think it's the most horrible thing ever, hopefully like it's not. And also I would first get eyes of other people than just deciding yourself. But I think it's always a better idea to have a reel. Even if it may not be the best thing, just for casting personnel to see somebody on screen is different than seeing a picture of them.
If anybody has any questions that didn't get answered, you can email them to me at nancy.fulton@yahoo.com, and I'll forward them to our guests. Anyway, you guys were great. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you for the questions, and thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
You're amazing. Thanks. Take care, you guys.
Take care.
Take care.
Goodbye, everyone.